In 1974, a man was unexpectedly challenged on live television to guess the content of a sealed envelope and then bend a solid stainless steel spoon. Incredibly, he was able to do both. His name? No, not Uri Geller, but James Randi. Today, at Stranger Stories, we will see Randi perform that incredible feat, and then we'll learn how he did it. Ready? Let's go. Welcome, my name is Massimo Polidoro, and for the most part of my life I've been investigating phenomena that appear to be strange and mysterious. But often things are not what they seem. Every 2 weeks we will investigate a new mystery that upon close examination may turn out to be somewhat different from what it appeared in the beginning. If you are like me and you too want to learn how to discern fact from fiction, I invite you to subscribe to my channel in order not to miss the next episodes. So click on the red button and the little bell, and then let's begin. In the early 1970s, a young Israeli psychic, Uri Geller, was convincing half the world that he possessed extraordinary psychic powers that allowed him to perform inexplicable demonstrations. He could bend spoons and forks just by gently stroking them, and he could guess drawings hidden inside sealed envelopes. He was able to convince scientists that his abilities were real, and he soon became a darling of the talk show's circuits. But not everyone was easily convinced. Among them, magician and skeptic James Randi, who had observed closely Geller's demonstrations and thought they were not psychic at all. He soon started duplicating the same stunts, revealing tricks that could be used so that scientists could be better equipped at spotting possible deceptions. However, soon Geller stopped performing in the laboratories and preferred to lecture or go on TV. Randi too went on television, but his hosts were not always sympathetic to his work, and in one occasion, something very unexpected took place, something that could have ruined Randi's reputation. In November 1974, Randi was invited to be a guest of a Canadian TV show titled ESP Special People on the Global Television Network. The host was journalist Alan Spraggett, a strong believer in the paranormal, and the main subject of the talk show was going to be the hottest psychic topic of the moment. Uri Geller, of course. Spraggett was convinced that Geller was the real thing and that Randi, by claiming that he could duplicate his feats, was only a bragging skeptic, unable to really do what he claimed. Randi accepted to be on the show, but only on the condition that he would not be asked to perform any magic. It was clear that to prove his point, Spraggett would never allow Randi the friendly atmosphere and relaxed conditions that Geller received almost wherever he went, and since these easygoing manners were essential in order to prepare for the wonders that would be later shown on camera, it was pointless for Randi to even try to demonstrate anything. Spraggett accepted Randi's caveat and invited him only to chat about the paranormal, or so it seemed. The day of the show, Randi arrived very late, along with his assistant Moses Figueroa. They were both soaking wet from a heavy rain and were immediately escorted to the control room, where they dried off a bit. Walter B. Gibson, a friend of Houdini and the author of the famous Shadow Detective stories, was present in the control room, along with 2 other program guests. An interview was already underway, so Randi waited for his turn. "I was not particularly apprehensive," he said, "since I was not under any pressure to perform and was there only to be interviewed." Randi was soon introduced in the studio and the interview started. They were only a few minutes into it when Spraggett started pressuring Randi for a performance. "If he was so good a magician," Spraggett said, "and if Geller was using magic tricks, Randi should be able to do the same things right on the spot." Randi was quite furious. Though he had said that he would not perform, Spraggett was demanding Randi to do so, under quite impossible conditions. Suddenly, Spraggett took 2 oversized, heavy, sturdy spoons from his desk and challenged Randi to bend them. They were not at all similar to the spoons that Geller had bent for Spraggett. Without ever letting them go, Sprague held the handles of the spoon and Randi lightly stroked the bowls. Then the journalist discarded one spoon and they concentrated on the other. Sprague agreed that at no time did Randi put undue pressure on them. After a moment, the spoon suddenly seemed to become like plastic, sheared off and broke into two pieces. Sprague lost some color in his face. "The spoon," Sprague said, trying to find an explanation for what had happened. "The spoon was bent as you were picking it up, and this is a phenomenon, of course, of in previously bending it so that there is a stress point, and then with a bit of leverage it separates quite neatly." In fact, as can be seen on the video recording of the show, Randi never had a chance to hold the spoons in his hands. Sprague held them the entire time, and Randi only stroked the bowls. Sprague's explanation made no sense. Next, Sprague produced a nail from his pocket, but Randi passed on this test. The journalist got some color back on his face, but it wasn't there for long. There is a technique that's used in con games in which the con artist wins a little, then loses, and then seems ready to lose very big in order to reel in the victim. On the nail, Randi appeared to be losing his edge, but in truth he was getting ready to pull the fish into his net. Sprague reached into his inner pocket and extracted an envelope sealed with transparent tape. He explained that he had made a drawing 24 hours before in the privacy of his own home and then sealed it in the envelope, which he had kept in his jacket pocket. Geller had been able to reproduce a drawing under those conditions. "Now," he said to Randi, "let's see you do that." "And if I could do it, what would you say?" asked Randi. "I would be very impressed. I'd be extremely impressed. But would you be impressed enough to say that I am a psychic? I don't know. I would have to consider that. But I would certainly say that you are a hell of a lot better magician than I think you are." "Wait a minute," Randi countered. "You said that Uri Geller is a psychic because he did this. Now, if I were able to do it, would you say I'm a psychic?" "You do it and I'll say that the amazing Randi has amazed me." Sprague evaded the question and allowed Randi to hold the envelope between his hands for only 10 seconds, as he had allowed Geller to do. After the 10 seconds, Randi asked for a pad and a felt-tip marker and made a drawing, allowing the camera a peek in order to show that he was really making the drawing at the time. When it was finished, he placed it face down on the table and asked, "Would you like to open the envelope, Alan?" Sprague did so and removed and unfolded a small sheet of blue paper, revealing a drawing of a tugboat with two decks on the waves with a single smokestack billowing smoke to the right. "Am I a psychic if I have reproduced that, Alan? Yes or no?" asked Randi. "If you have reproduced it, you are quite extraordinary." "But I'm not a psychic?" "You are extraordinary. I'd have to consider." Randi showed his drawing identical in every respect to the one Sprague had drawn 24 hours earlier. The journalist turned pale again. His attempt at debunking Randi had backfired on him. "Am I extraordinary, Alan?" Randi asked again. That's quite extraordinary, Randi. Have I proved anything to you? Look, we have to take a break." And when the break was over, Sprague claimed he could easily figure out how Randi had done it, and in fact he would probably have the answer in an hour. However, he was never able to do it. Not in an hour, not in a day, not in 48 years. And now, for the very first time on camera, from Randi himself, here is the secret of that quite extraordinary trick. When I first met Randi now 30 years ago, one of the first things that I asked him was how on earth had he been able to pull off that stunt on Sprague's show. I had read about it and had seen the interview when it was shown on Italian television during a series on parapsychology by journalist Piero Angela. By the way, that's the same clip I have shown you because the original in English seems to be lost, and in case any viewer knows better, I urge her or him to get in touch with me. I could not think of any trick used by magicians that could allow such an incredible feat. "Well, Massimo," Randi said, I knew Sprague quite well, and I was quite sure that he was not going to play by the rules. If he said he was not going to ask me to perform, I could quite confidently expect that he was going to play some tricks on me. Then I had to be prepared. And the solution is quite surprising. Some time ago, on a performance together, I asked Randy to explain how he did it.
It's a complicated story, but I think you'll enjoy it. I use it all the time for writing all my checks. I was with my assistant, Moses Figueroa. We got very lucky, actually, because when I drove in from Buffalo to Niagara, from Niagara Falls, I should say, towards Toronto, it started to rain like I had never seen before. So I said to Moses, I said, the rain is very good, this will be good in this direction. The two of us got out, we had to run for the door to get into the studio. There was a guard sitting there who greeted us and asked us to sign the book. I said, we're supposed to meet with Mr. Sprague, and I gave him the time and the clock that I was supposed to meet him. And I was supposed to be there at 3 o'clock. But I was there at 2 o'clock. I told him that there was a time difference between the United States and Canada, and I was far too early. Oh, I'm very sorry. I said, however, I won't sign in now. I'll come back later. But I would like to go and see, so I can see the studio, just to take a look at the studio. And my assistant, Moses, kept the guard busy with conversation. And I scurried down the corridor and looked into the studio window, and I saw Walter B. Gibson and the other people that were working on the program. And I saw that Mr. Sprague was very busy talking to them on camera. I looked around and I saw a door say Alan Sprague on it, the dressing room door. And I think I did a little. And I walked over to the door, looked around, walked in. There was his makeup there, there was a briefcase there, everything was all laid out, the door wasn't locked at all. And I opened up an attaché case, and there was a beautiful antique spoon, very big, the one that you saw there. And I also saw a sealed envelope there. Oh, what a surprise.
He's so funny.
Now I knew that he was trying to trap me. We had already said on the telephone, no sealed envelope tricks, no bending spoons or anything like that, and oh, of course not. No, but he had lied to me, and I had discovered that. So I quickly took this beautiful big silver spoon and I really worked on it. And I put it back carefully in the case. I took the envelope, and I looked in the drawer, and I saw the same envelopes in the drawer. So I just tore open the envelope, folded it up, put it in my pocket, looked at the drawing, took another envelope, put it in it, and put it back. So I was all prepared, believe me. And I hurried back down the corridor to where Moses was talking with the guard, and I said, Mo, he's busy in the studio, he can't see us now. So let's go and have something to eat. So we went out into the rain again, went to the car, but I must say this too. Sometimes, whoever it is up there or down there, I'm not sure which, if at all, sometimes they smile on magicians. We saw another car come in, park. Gentleman got out of it. He was in uniform, like the other guard. He went inside, we saw the door closed, and we saw the first guard, the one that we had spoken with, we saw him come out and get in his car and drive away. They were changing the shifts. How do you say it? Oh, hallelujah. We were very happy to see that because we knew that the second guard had never met us. He didn't know who we were when we walked in. And we were all set. So we just waited for a certain period of time in the car, like this. But being very careful now, remember, I'm thinking, I'm not letting things happen easily or automatically. As a magician, I have to think a little bit ahead. So what the two of us did was we stood outside until we were wet in the rain. So we walked in to see the guard, the new guard now, who didn't know who we were. We stepped over to the guard and said, "Oh, it's raining so heavy outside." He was going to remember that, you see, that we were wet and we had just arrived from the car. That wasn't true, but that's what he would say afterwards. And again, the gods who look after magicians were still working for us, still working hard. I don't know who he is or what he is or he or she, I don't know. But we walked down the hall, and as we're going down the hall, all wet, Alan Spraggett came walking out of the studio. He said, "Oh, you're here." I said, "Oh yes, I'm here now." So the program took place under those conditions. That's why when Alan Spraggett suddenly pulled out this big spoon, I was pretending to be surprised. "Oh, I thought we weren't going to do this." But I knew very well, I was already ahead of him by about 200 kilometers, I think. So when the spoon broke, Alan Spraggett's face fell. But he very quickly recovered. And he said, "But we've got this envelope here." And he knew that he would succeed with the envelope. And so I made the drawing, but there was one cameraman looking over my shoulder, trying to get a picture, you see, for the videotape. And I was constantly doing this and avoiding him. I made the drawing. The drawing was pretty good, too. It was exactly what he had originally drawn, the little tugboat with the waves and such. And when we showed that to Spraggett, he just made a sound. He went, "Huh." Just like that. He was astonished, of course. I don't understand why.
Of course, as Randi usually did when he intended to prove his point, and in this case the point was that a television reporter, as good as he could be, is no match for a good magician, he left a chance for his puzzle to be solved. There was at least one way to get a clue as to how Randi did it. Someone may have questioned the guard who had been on duty when Randi arrived in order to find out whether Randi had been at the studio before. If so, the guard could only have said no. However, had someone asked the morning shift guard as well, Randi's trick might have been discovered. The fact is that no one ever questioned that guard. If Spraggett never checked all of the possible trails in order to find a solution to the mystery that had baffled him, one can be pretty sure that he never bothered to look for alternatives to the paranormal explanation when he met Uri Geller and other psychics. He didn't think he needed to. He had already decided that paranormal was real, and how easy it must have been then for Geller and the others to perform their miracles. Not surprisingly, the show with Randi was not broadcast on the day that previously had been announced. It was delayed by a week, and 2 weeks later the station suddenly cancelled the entire Is Special People series. It seems that just a single very special person had been enough to knock ESP off of that network. I am Massimo Polidoro, and I thank you for having watched this first episode of Stranger Stories, and I invite you to subscribe to my channel. We'll meet again in 2 weeks with another very unusual, strange story. If you are interested in psychic trickery and how deception works, you can find some useful information in the links you will find in the description below. Tell me what you think of this video, leave a comment and point out other strange stories you would like me to investigate. I'll do my best to accommodate you. Until next time.